The Power 2 here in College Football Addiction. Boys, 17 days until the season starts in Dublin. I am jealous. I don't know how many Iowa State, Kansas State fans watch this, but Dublin's a good time, man. I don't know if either of you have been. It's certainly a good time around the games, especially when you get off the airport and the whole thing is decorated in, well, last year was blue and gold and guardian gold. And it's, you see fans of both teams there all week. It really is a cool experience, and I'm jealous of the people that'll be out there. But either way, we get 5 or 6 games that first Saturday, and then a week away from more football. So it is close. It does feel like the offseason feels like it's flown by, and I'm pretty excited.
I'm stoked because I get real bored after football season, and I'll start watching the UFL and the CFL and even following some indoor football, arena football, that sort of thing. I've even taken to following the ELF online, which for those of you who aren't aware is the European League of Football. So it's not ELF. It's it is ELF technically.
It is ELF.
Yeah. But it is interesting because all the old NFL Europa teams are still kind of in existence. It's just 1,000 ads on their uniforms. So I pay attention to it, and every once in a while you'll see Talia Tagovailoa pop up or something like that. You're like, what is happening? So that's where I'm at. I'm dying for football at this point.
I don't care. I've been watching football since football ended. I've been going through the highlights. I want more highlights. I can only watch so much of how many times Alabama lost last year to Vanderbilt in a terrible format, how many times the FSU decided to crap the bed. I just want football back on my screen. Have new narratives, new storylines, new things to follow, new players to watch for, all of that. And we're so close. I love Dublin. It's blended of my people, alcoholics and Irish. So it's a perfect blend for me. I'm very jealous of Farmageddon being played there. But I'm also kind of sad that Farmageddon's being played there, because the thing that I loved about Farmageddon is that it was always feeling like a snow game, whether it be in Manhattan or Ames, late in the year. You get that environment, so much toxicity between these two fans, plus you throw in the cold element to it. There's something special about that game, but I'm also, very jealous of both those fan bases.
Yeah, I have this year. I think the game is a day or two. No, it's 2 days before my daughter's birthday. Last year it was the day before, and so flying home on her birthday was something that took a lot of convincing to my wife. A European vacation for a week, which is what it took. But next year it's early. It's 5 or 6 days before. And if Belichick's there another year, which I know that's a maybe, but if Belichick's there another year, I'm trying to go back to Dublin next year. TCU, UNC. I know that has nothing to do with it. I'm not trying to overlook 25. But, I really want to go next year. So maybe the Power 2 live from Dublin. We'll see.
We could convince them. Somebody will take us. Yeah.
Somebody will take us. So, all right, let's get into the show. This was fun. This has, we'll talk Ohio State, Texas this week. Not necessarily the matchup, but both the teams, as we do a few more team previews before the season starts. We will talk a little bit about the coaches poll that came out. I've got some hot takes on the coaches poll. And then an AP poll fact as that comes out Monday, I believe. And then we'll get into the wild card too. But we'll have some fun here at the start. If you're watching on Twitter, X, we can't see your comments, so we'd love if you went over to YouTube. But either way, we're just glad that you're here with us. Cole and I are famous. This might be our last show. We might be retiring. We'll get into this, and then we'll talk some big picture media stuff too. But
we could be joining big picture media because of what just happened this past week. That's the thing. Hour 2 could be moving on.
It doesn't get any bigger. All right, I'll play a quick clip. In just a second. I've got Cole's picture on here too. I didn't have the time to go find Cole's recording, but I can do that later if he asks me nicely. But Netflix dropped a documentary, which I've seen some mixed reactions to, mostly because I follow a bunch of Florida fans and they just like to complain about everything. But I've seen some mixed reactions to. I thought I've seen 2 episodes so far, both been really good. But Netflix dropped the documentary Any Given Saturday is maybe the name of it.
Saturday, yeah.
All about SEC football. It goes through some of the high moments, low moments from the last season. Really fun to get some kind of glimpse into some of the behind the scenes stuff. If you're a junkie and you follow this, maybe you knew everything that was kind of in there anyway, but it is kind of cool to see it all compiled, and they did a really good job with the Netflix documentary, really well put together. Cole and I, and the guys SEC Unfiltered, obviously, we were in it. That was the coolest thing. They hit me up in, January, February, and they were like, hey, we would like to use a clip from your podcast about DJ Lagway. Would you be okay with that? And I was like, yes, like absolutely. A bunch of my buddies have been like, hey, did you get paid for it? And I was like, no, absolutely not. Like they've used a ton of different, content creators and podcasts and radio shows and stuff. And yeah, I mean, I've kind of thought about like, what would they, I mean, like it would have been like $2, right? Like what was it worth? If that.
Well, the residuals would have paid a factor. Now, how much residuals is 5 seconds worth of a clip is the big question.
Right. Yeah. But I'm just like, okay, I've been like Seinfeld signing the checks for 5 years that are like $1.50. And so, but anyway,
pay for my coffee in the morning. Just do that.
You gotta cash it. You gotta cash it. That accrues interest. Yeah.
Give me 1 year of Netflix. That's what I should have asked for. Can I get a year of Netflix? Because like even if they just said no, but it was cool. I have a quick clip. Tom said, "Can you put a clip together?" I did, and I got Cole's picture next to it. This will flip back. It is 5 seconds, so this won't waste a lot of your time.
Another sellout here at Neyland Stadium. It'll be about 102,000.
I think he would be better off just going with Lagway. There it is. 7 words. I don't know. I can't even count that high. But I said that after they played Samford when he went for, I think, 457 yards, a freshman record in the Swamp.
4 touchdowns that day.
Yeah,
I just watched that episode. I heard your voice. I told Kirsten last night. I know TJ. I work with him.
Yeah, it was. And so I said that after Samford. So I'm watching the documentary and they get to the A&M game and I'm like, oh, well, I guess I didn't make the final cut. Like I almost turned it off, but then I was like, let me check, let me keep watching just in case. And even though I said it earlier, they played it obviously at the start of that Tennessee game. And it was pretty cool to see it. Cole, I know you were in there too. Pretty neat to see yourself on screen and hear some of your takes while you're watching a documentary about your favorite sport in the world.
So I actually was in a couple more takes with it. Now my voice is in a few more. There's an actual video of me just talking straight up. I thought that was really cool. It speaks volume about some of the podcasts that they've targeted because they know that there is a driven audience. And I think the biggest thing that I took away from that was not only was it a great test of seeing where the SEC is and just reliving what was last season, which was chaotic in so many ways, but it kind of spoke volume and validity to, what we do here, that we're not just a run-of-the-mill type of podcast that people aren't paying attention to because if Netflix could target anybody and they said, we like your clips, we like what you had to say, we're going to throw you into where millions of people could watch it. Even if they don't know who you are, we can mention, hey, this is from SEC Unfiltered, or this is from the Power 2, or this is from the War Channel, or whatever channel you're on. There's reasons that you need to be checking out these type of local podcasters and why we're going to continue to see the growth of it. But also, I went through and I watched almost the entire documentary. I'm on the very last episode. I think it was really well done. I will say there is some pushback that I do have, which is they didn't tell the entire story for several of the teams. Yeah. The Florida episode specifically, we only saw Florida lose the game to Tennessee.
I loved it.
We didn't see comeback. And that was a problem that has. You're going to tell the narrative, tell it fully. DJ Lagway did respond in the fourth quarter, trailing to Tennessee to send that game in overtime. But all we see is the overtime field goal and then the run by Dylan Sampson to win the football game. So, I wish that they went into more detail, like the Nicky Manwari interception in game 1, the LSU game. It was such a critical moment for the SEC because it altered an entire pathway for a fan base. And they truly, in my opinion, were snubbed the college football playoff bid for that one play. But we just gloss all over it because we watch instead LSU make the comeback. I think that there was some storytelling in there, elements that were very souring, but still, it's more SEC football. It was the ultimate appetizer, the first course of a 12-meal entree that you're going to have where you're getting prepared for football. So I appreciate that. And also, I get to tell my friends and my family, hey, my voice is right here. Hey, this is me in a video. My niece is about to be born, and I get to hold her in my arms and go, listen, your Uncle Cole was in a video. It was in a Netflix documentary. You're entering a world where you have a famous uncle. Look at that.
I didn't even have to send it to anybody because my wife sent it to about 400 people. So she was probably we joked off air. I think off air. I can't even remember. It all kind of went together. But she was proud. She sent it to a ton of people, and it was cool. It was neat. Tom, I don't know if you've watched any of it or just, are basking in the awe of your two co-hosts here, but
Away by you guys, I've been fortunate to have some interesting television and media opportunities.
Tom's already famous.
I say, Tom's
what did I forget? Like,
I don't know about that, but I don't believe I've been on Netflix. If I've been on something posthumous, my time in WWE that they happen to re-air, I'm unaware of it. But I'm very excited for you guys to get some exposure on there. I think it's really cool. I haven't seen the documentary yet. I'm a little jaded with Netflix documentaries because Swamp Kings was so off. They missed the target by so much. And you can just tell sometimes when documentaries get put together, you have to understand who wanted it put together and what was the message they were putting out there. So I wouldn't be shocked if there are elements of storytelling that it's like, hey, what's best for the doc as opposed to what actually happened. So I do want to take a look at it, and I will absolutely watch a documentary about college football. I am half debating starting Last Chance U football, not basketball, from the very beginning, because that is an amazing series also on Netflix.
Well, that set the tone. I think that every other Netflix documentary series should have been off of that, and especially in the world of sports. And they didn't. Like Swamp Kings is so bad in terms of what we thought it was supposed to be. The Johnny Manziel documentary had so many elements that were left on out. Like I've talked to people just like around the program, and they're like, they missed about 80% of Johnny's story. And partially that's because of he still is a public figure. And I'm not going to be a public figure if they show what was actually supposed to be said. So, like, there's ways to go about it, but still, it means they're closer to college football season. Just the fact that that's on our screen just gives us the warm welcome of, hey, you're almost at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. On the UF thing specifically, because that's one of the two that I did watch, I felt like they were trying to make it so much about Graham Mertz. And so then when he got hurt, like, it felt like they just skated, like, all right, well, that's the end of the episode, and I saw UF fans complaining, like, man, I want to see what happened against Ole Miss and LSU and down the stretch, beating FSU, beat all this other stuff, which I completely understand that. I haven't seen all of them. It doesn't seem like anything is a full season in review. Like, they take a very specific approach with each episode, at least based on the titles. I mean, Cole, you could correct me if I'm wrong there because I haven't seen them all like you, but it seems like, and so from UF's perspective, I would be the same way. I'd be like, hey, you showed all our crappy moments, getting blown out by A&M, blown out by Miami, losing on the road to Tennessee. Where's Ole Miss? Where's LSU? Where's the Knowles? But I also understand Netflix was like, well, it was a QB focused thing, so we showed so I get both sides, but I mean, fans are never happy with anything. So I understand that.
So, like, the Vanderbilt episode is mostly Vanderbilt, but there's, like, a couple of other clips in there. Like, the thing that we'll say about the Florida episode is it was all Florida. Like, that first episode was a mix of LSU and South Carolina leading up to that game. The last episode is Tennessee, Kentucky, and South Carolina, all talking about their end of the season. The A&M is mixing in a little bit with South Carolina a bit. Arkansas is mixing in a little bit. But, like, that episode is strictly Florida. You aren't turning to anything else. So that's where you can be a little appreciative if you're a Gators fan, that they put so much of an emphasis, not just on the quarterback position, but on Billy Napier's tenure, on us and where we are as a program going into the year versus how we finished the year, how the entire narrative changed around Billy after that signature win to close out. I mean, that signature upset. So, like, there's a lot of things that go into it, but also you want to see the upsets. You want to see the Florida LSU game. You want to see the Florida Ole Miss game. And you just get told, oh, here's DJ Lagway running it in for a touchdown. He gets the win. Here's DJ Lagway fine in the back of the end zone. He gets the win. Here's them in the Gasparilla Bowl. He gets the win. Okay, well, how about I see it? Like, one or two plays that's really, really promising about that makes them where I feel like that this team has turned the tides.
Yeah, it was such a I don't feel for Florida fans at all, but it was such a, it was just all Florida's lowlights, so like, I get it, man. Like, I understand that. On the media real quick, and Cole talked a little bit about like, these people, these people at Netflix, like, certainly did their due diligence. I mean, I saw so many, you had to look at it really quick. I actually had to screen record and then pause the screen record because they go through the credits so fast. But I saw College Football Addiction on there. I obviously saw SEC Unfiltered and others. But there were so many. That was cool to see so many just, independent media, right? Like, independent media really making a big difference. And there was the big stuff too. Like Staples was interviewed in person. There were Feinbaum was interviewed in person. There was a lot of that stuff too. But it was cool to see that aspect, and maybe that's a good transition into On3 making some splashes. And Cole, I know you're like, I can feel Cole like tensing up right now, ready to get some takes off. But On3 made two notable hires this week, or switches or flops or whatever you would call them. Not flops, but flips. Brought in Josh Pate, which is a huge name and maybe the biggest in the industry. Brings in Josh Pate as they continue to New York Yankees their way to being the college football entity. And then Zach Herbstreit, which I also thought was interesting. I am not super familiar with Zach. I mean, obviously his dad is one of the biggest faces in the space as well, but let's talk about On3 making some splashes.
Is Zach the one running Kirk's social media handles, or bullshit? Or that was bullshit, right? Okay.
And then there was the Ohio State, and they played at Ohio State.
Right.
There you go. Yeah.
So Zach blocked me, but anyway, thoughts on either one of those two hires? Whoever can go here.
Cole, after you.
You never burn bridges in this industry. I wish them both the best of luck. I think that it's a great hire. I do. Now, again, Pate's already come out and said that nothing's going to change. The show format's going to stay the same. Hopefully, it's still going to be brought to you by Academy. Still going to have the quick trip deals. And Pate is the standard in college football podcasting. I mean, like, you can go ahead and argue with other people and saying that they've done a good job. And there's a lot of good content creators out there, which is why I want to preface this by saying just because of one person joins an entity doesn't mean that it's a good move or a bad move. And don't just sneer at the other people that are trying to make the industry that much more popular. The thing that has been a beauty about people like Pate opening up doors is he's shown you that you can have success in the world of college football and podcasting, not just in the national media perspective. And ESPN has gone downhill with their national perspective. I think Fox Sports has completely lost its mind outside of Joel Klatt, who, for my opinion, is the best podcaster in college football. That's just my 2 cents, but that's neither here nor there. You can have your arguments. But I think it's a great move for On3. Shannon Terry knows what he's doing. He's built up to mega dynasties and rivals, and then 247. He's doing it once again with what he's building over there in Nashville. And I wish him the best. And as for Zach, best of luck to you, buddy. And honestly, I would just stay off social media for a little bit. Like, honestly, that would just be my personal advice is don't look at what anybody is saying. Just do your own thing. Stay the best course. And hopefully you and I can have a good conversation one day. And maybe you can convince your boss. Power 2 is a really good show. You should bring them on as well.
I wonder. So I'm not, and I don't mean this as a slam. I don't know anything about Zach Herbstreit. But I am intrigued by it. Like, I'm not like, but there are a lot of haters. A lot of people are like, oh, well, this, that. Listen, I don't really care, right? Like, why do you think most people get jobs? But I am intrigued by it because I do think it'll be interesting. Obviously, Kirk is a very polarizing figure, good or bad, with a lot of fan bases. And Kirk has been on Double Fries No Slaw. Like, he's been on my FSU show. He gave us an hour, and we kept saying, dude, we got to get you off here. We keep talking. And he was so gracious and so great, even through all the Florida State crap of the last couple of years. He is, listen, I've always really liked Kirk Herbstreit. Now, obviously, FSU fans have this big battle with him now. But I will say that the both hires really intriguing. And boy, anything that On3 seems to do these days causes a massive reaction, and I enjoy it. It's all entertainment to me. So people are getting upset or mad or hyped or whatever about anything. This is all entertainment. Like, this is all like, no matter what happens or what On3 does, what we do, I got to go like put my kids down for a nap after this. I got to go take them to dinner. They got school in the morning. Like, I don't know, life goes on, but I enjoy the entertainment factor. I enjoy the freak out.
Yeah. It's entertainment across the board. It's sports entertainment for a reason. I think there's this big need within sports media from consumers and from customers, fans, whatever you want to call it, for information. And I think that's where On3 has been so good for a long time. And I think that's why you're seeing some of these moves, is that it's like, hey, you got to bring it on the entertainment side as well. And that you can't just do nonstop information and education. Like, I'm a nerd and I love that sort of stuff. So I am interested in what On3 is doing, especially with Josh Pate. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, you're going to have to spice it up a little bit. That's just kind of the nature of getting eyeballs in this day and age. So.
Yeah, all I will say to end this segment is that's really cool that you hired those two. It's just going to make me work 3 times as hard to prove you why I should be in the running to be one of the other podcasters that you hire one day, whether it be with the Power 2, SEC Unfiltered, whatever. And you know what? That's a good thing. It makes you more hungry to be in that conversation where you build your own platform and you're competing against them. And then they have to pay attention to you. And best of luck to you guys. That's what I will say.
Yeah, I do, not to make it so much about us, but I'll do it. You tuned into our show. I do love what we're building, and I think it's, I love the independent side of things. Now, I will say on 3, as much as that is a corporate entity, I think they do a really good job of letting unique voices be unique voices. JD is a very unique voice. I think my buddy Josh Newberg is a very unique voice. They don't feel like a corporate entity. They very much are. That's not a slam on them. Brett McMurphy is his own, he's wishing people happy birthdays and tracking bowl games. I feel like they have done a good job. That's one thing I'll give them a ton of credit for is they have assembled a very large team, a great team, but they, not everybody just sounds the same, right? Like they're all towing that. They all kind of have their own unique voices but that's my favorite thing about being independent, right? Not that we would never go somewhere or do something that made sense with any, big entity, but I do that's what I like about SEC Unfiltered. That's why as an SEC hater, I tune in and watch Chris and you guys talk is I like the independent side of things where you can just kind of have your takes and get them off. And so anyway, all right. All that said, something that people love to obsess about as well is the coaches poll. And shout out to me. My kid was late to his dentist appointment because I figured out how to get a picture back up on this screen. We've got the coaches poll here, courtesy of On3. Thank you guys for the graphic. It was the first one that popped up on Google, so it fit the picture really well. Other people had it as a bad ratio, so thank you to On3 for this as well. Texas 1, Ohio State 2, Penn State 3, Georgia, Notre Dame. You guys can see the rest. I don't need to go through all of them. I have a hot take on the coaches poll. I don't even know if it's a hot take. It is so irrelevant. And the coaches poll is the worst poll that comes out, besides maybe the college football playoff rankings. Because
you mean 2023 playoff rankings or every year?
Just every year.
Okay,
I've always hated the committee. The committee dropped an undefeated Florida State under Mississippi State back in 2014, and I've hated them ever since then. So it's not even a 23 thing. This is a long-standing hatred that I have. I think Mississippi State finished with 3 or 4 losses that year too. But anyway, all that said, the coaches poll drops. I think this is so irrelevant, but people love it and they talk about it. And so here we are doing it too. Some SID at 25 schools here just, filled this out. I think very little coaches, maybe Lane would be an exception, actually fill this out themselves. But whatever, it comes out every year and it is a talking point. Anything surprise you on this though? Because you do get a pretty good consensus of where people think teams are at. Cole and I have dominated this, I feel like, so far. Tom, what do you think here?
One, I'll echo the sentiments of most coaches that they do not care about preseason polls. So I personally don't care about the rankings at all until middle of the season where I'm okay, let's see now that we know a little bit about body of work, that sort of stuff. I would have expected a little bit more love for Clemson. I think that the ACC is what's holding them down, I guess. Yeah. And even though there are a lot of people that project that Clemson could win the ACC and be in contention for the national championship this year, kind of expected to see Clemson a little further ahead, considering their questions at the most important position in football are far less than those of Ohio State and Notre Dame. And I know everybody wants to anoint Arch Manning, but we don't have that much data on Arch Manning. Dante Moore and Oregon sniffing right behind Clemson. I'm okay, there's a lot of unproven commodities up here that are just getting brand recognition and what we knew of them from last season, which is just not how football works. It's a completely different team every single year. I think the thing that's really funny is that if you actually cared about this, then a team that was a conference champion and got a bye in last year's playoff is the 25th ranked best team in the country in Boise State. What are we doing with the way that we ultimately wind up seeding the playoffs? None of this matters right now, but it's still just reinforcing that information of there's a gap between these teams and we just need to shore up that gap.
So for me personally, I'm at that stage of life where I'm not going to get in arguments over small little things. I talk to people all the time. Who are your top 4 quarterbacks in the NFL? And as long as you have Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Lamar Jackson in any order, you know what? Cool. I'm not going to sit here and lose sleep over it. It's the same way I feel about this coaches poll. You have 9 teams that I think can truly win the national championship, and they're 1 through 9. if you have them in any order, LSU 5, Clemson 1, Penn State 2, Texas 7, Alabama 9, it doesn't bother me. Those 9 teams feel like the most complete rosters and the teams that we expect to go to the college football playoff this year. So I agree with Tom. I think that Clemson should be at least in the top 4 based off what they have in returning production. I love the Tom Allen hire. I think their defense is going to be stout. I think that we could give a little bit more credit to Penn State over Ohio State just because of what they return roster-wise. But I understand if you want Ohio State in the top 2, and it does a lot of volume for setting the tone in Columbus week 1 as 1 versus 2 face off against each other. And I kind of feel the same way about like 10 through 16, 17. If you have those teams in some pecking order, I'm fine with it. I think A&M's a little bit too low. I think what they return offensively is really, really promising this year. But I'm also going to say something that maybe is a little bit controversial. I think that they missed on several teams in the Big 12 for teams that are currently in the Big 12. I have a lot of questions about Iowa State going into this year. What's the wide receiver situation look like now that your 2 top targets are with the Houston Texans? What about BYU? I understand that you want to give credit to the rest of the roster, but if Jake Retzlaff was the answer to your team, is that really worthy when you have rosters like Baylor and TCU that feature prime quarterbacks coming on back in, have a good backfield, have solid defensive play for one side in Fort Worth, and then a solid offensive 3-headed monster with Bryson Washington and Josh Cameron on the opposing side? The 2 teams that I felt were the biggest snubs right now. Number 1 is Oklahoma, because if Oklahoma for the first time since 1999 is not in the preseason coaches poll, what they did to revamp their roster, whether or not we want to say that there is reason and logic to believe that there could end up disappointing, how certain are we that how much Tennessee lost? They're worthy of being in the top 25. Like how much with Indiana losing, they're worthy of being in the top 25. How much SMU lost, they're worthy of being in the top 25. So have a sigma and have a balanced line of what you're looking at in terms of this is the criteria to be in the top 25. And then Georgia Tech. Like that one is so mind-boggling to me because I'm so high on the Yellow Jackets and I get it. I may be dying on a hill of them as a college football playoff threat, an actual threat to dethrone Clemson in the ACC, but they have a good roster. They have an absolute stud version of what you have in terms of the quarterback and running back tandem. They brought in 2 really good wide receivers from FIU. Their defense has 8 returning starters, and they have a coach that took Georgia to 7 overtimes. Like, show them at least a little bit of respect. And I agree, USC, that's another team that if you don't have them in your top 25, I can understand it, but I personally would have them in the top 25. Maybe I'd have them closer to like 21 or 20, but the way that their offense is built right now and the way that I think their defense is going to respond this offseason, they at least belong somewhere in that bottom half range.
17, 18. Florida State at 43rd, just in case anybody was wondering. In the others, we did get some votes. Yeah, you mentioned Oklahoma. They were snubbed. They were the first team voted out with 221 votes, just 25 votes, 25 votes behind Boise State. So they were close. And it felt like for Boise State to be 25th, I kind of agree with Tom. Like maybe a little bit fun. It just felt like a charity,
it wasn't charity. They lost their star running back that kept them in the playoff hunt. But here's 25.
We'll throw them in for the heck of it. Missouri, not in here. Now I know they've got some changes and stuff too, but they were the second team voted out. Louisville right after would be one. Georgia Tech is the one that's interesting to me too. You've got Texas Tech in off of. Now listen, very expensive roster. They made some huge splashes. You essentially have Texas Tech in because of the money they've spent and the preseason hype, but don't have Georgia Tech even close. Georgia Tech got 27 votes, right? Like they're quick math would say 31st, 32nd, somewhere in there. No, even further. Yeah, closer to 40. Late 30s in that one. So to not even have them close to being in, got 27 total votes is a little bit mind-boggling. But to, like you just said, to keep BYU in, to keep Tennessee so high is maybe a bit of a head scratcher. Again, all of this said, every nitpick, every gripe that I've got, I don't think any of this matters. Like if Florida State wins week 1, not projecting that, they'll be in this thing. If Georgia Tech goes on the road and beats Colorado, I think they'll be pretty close, maybe not in, but I think they'll be pretty close. And by the same token, BYU drops a game early. Tennessee loses to who is it? Syracuse week 1. They'll fall out, and Syracuse is not super far down. They're ahead of FSU, but behind Georgia Tech. They'll get close. So the preseason rankings don't matter. We'll probably do this again next week when the AP poll comes out, unless it's like a direct mirror image. But it'll get sorted pretty quickly. If we see kind of what happens, whoever wins out of 1 and 2, like that'll be your clear one. Clemson gets a big win against LSU. That might be like your 2 or 3 at that point, based on how that goes down. So it will get sorted fairly quickly. But again, I don't know how much of it matters at the end of the day.
Let me ask you guys, if you just look at the top 9, Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, Georgia, Notre Dame, Clemson, Oregon, Alabama, LSU. Is that your top 9 going into the year?
Yes.
Yeah, and to follow that up, I think it pains me to do this. I think I'd take Miami on a neutral field over most of the teams that are behind them too. Like I think the top 10 is, I don't know that I feel like Miami could win a national championship. We'll see. But I actually think the top 10, 11-ish are pretty good. Like if you really wanted to fight against, South Carolina and Arizona State, I mean, fine. Like kind of like Cole said earlier, like whatever. If you want to flop some of those teams around, you really could, 10 through 17. But I think even 10, 11, 12 is maybe when you start to get, but you can't put South Carolina ahead after that bowl game, right? So I kind of like the way they did that too.
So personally, and I'll just tell you guys right now, because my top 25 is coming out tomorrow. It's not the same as this one, but if you just move Arizona State into the number 10 spot, they're the same 10 teams.
Yeah. Arizona State versus Miami would be a fun one, by the way.
Very fun game. Very fun game.
Now, this was related to the AP poll, not the coaches poll. And so I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I don't know if you guys saw this. I put it in my bookmarks, so let me pull that up real quick. Did you know that last year, 13 teams of the top 25 in the AP poll finished unranked? Quickly: Michigan, Florida State, Utah, LSU, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, A&M, Arizona, Kansas, USC, NC State, and Iowa. So I don't know that we'll get 13 out of 25 again, because that seems like an abnormally large amount. Obviously, Florida State disappointed. Other teams disappointed as well. But you had a lot of teams finished unranked that were in this from the start. And so I know I like the idea of like, hey, coaches, the polls don't matter at the beginning. Listen, do they impact some things? Yes, because where you're thought of, Georgia Tech and Boston College got top 10 wins last year for beating Florida State. And you get to the end of the year and you're like, those weren't really top 10 wins, but they just happened to be top 10 when you played them. So it does impact some things. At the end of the year, the polls essentially reflect the records. All of your undefeateds are first. All of your 1-loss teams are next. All of your 2-loss teams are next. Your 3-loss teams are your top 15, 20 teams. And then the bottom of the barrel is your 4-loss, like Big Ten to SEC teams. Like it all ends up working itself out. And so the people that flip out about it at the beginning, yes, it does impact some things. Yes, you do get some premier wins early because of teams being misranked. It doesn't really matter that much.
Before we move on, I do want to ask you guys, there were 13 teams last year that did not finish the season ranked in the preseason. If you look at this roster, is there any team that you see outside of the top 9 that you can guarantee will still be ranked at the end of the year? Guarantee. Now, I'm not saying that they can or can't. I'm saying will, like guarantee. No question.
Guarantee that teams will be ranked that are not inside the top 9.
Yes. I see 2.
So I think
I'm going to say Arizona State solely because of them being a little top heavy there in the Big 12. So that'll help them.
I think Miami stays ranked.
Miami would have been my one. Yeah.
Miami is for sure. I think going to stay ranked. And personally, and this is a shot in the dark because it's a big belief in DJ Lagway. I think Florida stays ranked. And the reason I say Florida stays ranked is because of even though they have a signature loss, they get a signature win in the process. So they're always floating in that 24-25 range.
Yeah, I could see Florida dropping out because they lose two of 3 games, but we'll see. Like I think they go 1-2 against Miami, LSU, and Texas. So I do think I wouldn't put Florida. I'd say Miami because I think their ACC schedule is trash. Michigan might be if I had to pick a second one, I might take Michigan. But that's going to depend on that Oklahoma game and that Washington game kind of early. So
Kansas State also to me feels like the easy bet. And the reason I say that is because of their perennial 8-4 in the Big 12, but then have that breakout 10-2 season. Because Chris Kleiman is one of the most underappreciated coaches in college football. And like, he just will find a way to guarantee, hey, we're 8-4 every year, bare minimum. And we'll take that.
They're consistent. It's tough to do. It's
you know what was so
he's great. Yeah.
What was so funny is we were having a conversation on SEC Unfiltered about how Missouri has more 10-win seasons than like 6 other teams in the SEC. But like in between those 10-win seasons, they go 4-8, 5-7, 6-6. Meanwhile, A&M is 6th in wins since joining the SEC in 2012.
Oh, just the most consistent 8-4.
But why is it? Because they're the most consistent 8-4 team. So that's kind of Kansas State. It's like, yeah, they may go 10-2 one year, but they're never going less than 8-4. So actually, switch that pick. I'm taking out Florida. I'm putting Kansas State in. Miami and Kansas State are staying ranked all year.
I love this. Won't hit because I'm about to say it. I have no real. That's real wood. I love Kansas State -3 in that opener. So we'll see. This is not a betting show, but
wait, you love -3?
I love Kansas State -3.
I'm hammering the -3. I'm taking Kansas State.
Which means Iowa State wins this thing outright.
I don't care. I don't care. It's week 0. I'll make my bold prediction now. Kansas State wins Farmageddon. I'm fine with that.
I actually, if they weren't different weeks, because I just hate my money being tied up a ton, I actually really like the Clemson -3 too. I can't believe that's still where that's at. So on to, let's go SEC first. Texas Longhorns. Kind of a really quick, this is not like super in depth, but a really quick season preview for Texas. And then ironically, we've got Ohio State coming up next. So Cole, the floor is yours.
Texas went 11-2 in the season with both losses coming to Georgia, one in the SEC championship game, an elite defense and offense that found a rhythm with the number 1 wide receiver in Matthew Golden and Gunnar Helm. They ended up getting a win over Clemson in the first round of the playoff as the number 5 seed, went to overtime against Arizona State. Defense really let them down by Cam Scadaboo, basically turning into 2019 Juan Soto, where the commentators had to say his name every single time that you went right before a commercial break. But they did get the big touchdown pass to Gunnar Helm and Matthew Golden to win that game down to the wire against Ohio State. People look at that 14-point swing, but outside of a few explosive plays, Texas was in that matchup the entire game. The Travion Henderson touchdown and the Jack Sawyer fumble recovery for a scoop and score were the big deciding factors in that matchup from Texas not making it to the national championship for a second straight year in the semifinals of the college football playoff. They're the favorites going in as the betting odds, and also by many people saying that this is the most complete team in the SEC. But they are replacing a lot of talent. 4 new starting offensive linemen, 3 new starting wide receivers, 1 new starting tight end, and a brand new quarterback in Arch Manning that has to be the guy this year. No longer has the security blanket to say, we're turning the ball over to 3-16. You can go ahead and sit this one out. I really do like this roster. I think the wide receiver room did a good job of backpedaling in over the last 2 years. Quality talent that can step on up. DeAndre Moore in the slot had a couple of big-time catches last season. Had a big drop in the Florida game, but still made up for it in the Georgia matchup, made up for it in the Arizona State matchup. I think that the addition of Ryan Wingo, I talked to some people out in Austin. If they did not have a Matthew Golden, many people believe he would have had the same Ryan Williams, Cam Coleman-esque type season. So very much high on him with Arch Manning. The two of them built a great rapport working with the second team offense last year. And then they brought in 2 really solid transfers in Jack Andrews, who for my money is the best receiving tight end in college football. And then Emmett Mosley, who led all ACC freshman interceptions last year at Stanford. This is going to be a very patented offense that allows you to spread the football around, not really have that one fixture go-to Staples easy button slam down type of wide receiver. And I think that the running back room is going to be really potent this year because you already have a 1,000-yard runner and Trey Wisner back. But CJ Baxter, who missed all of last season with a torn ACL, is ahead of schedule. He's back at practice. He may not be the lead rusher in the matchup against Ohio State, but by the season's end, we are talking about a potential Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson balanced core together that really is going to set the tone on the ground for this team to take flight and be one of the most dynamic offenses. The offensive line is a little scary. They do have the loss of Coro, who was supposed to be competing for right tackle reps. Sark says he's not going into the portal. We're just going to have to make do with it. So that may be a hindrance, especially in the run blocking and protection. Arch is the guy. We'll get back to him in a minute. Defensively, guys, I still think this could be the most complete unit in college football. Like, yes, they lost a lot in the portal. I mean, they lost a lot to the draft. And a second year in a row, you are replenishing your entire defensive line by having to go after up-and-coming players or transfer portal additions. But I like the transfer portal additions. Brevard comes on in from Purdue. I think he's a really talented player. Hero Canoe can be that third down depth piece that does a good job of playing the zero technique. Manad Watson, I think, is going to be one of the big breakout stars. Had a phenomenal first year at Syracuse in a limited role. They're going to utilize him in so many different ways. You also have Justice Terry, the 5-star phenom from Georgia, who's made it clear in a world of NIL, the Longhorns offered a better package. They have, in my opinion, the best defensive player in college football, and that's Anthony Hill. And I understand that Ohio State has Caleb Downs, but when I look at what Anthony Hill did last year, I think he belongs in the Butkus Award conversation. If there's going to be a dark horse defensive player to be in New York City for the Heisman Trophy presentation, I think it is Ant Hill, just because of what he provides in tackles for losses. Led the SEC last season in TFLs, also was great in coverage, had a good overall sack demeanor last season. Colin Simmons comes back for another year. That's one of the more improved pass rushers. And Trey Moore, who just 2 years ago was the AAC Defensive Player of the Year, he's getting in some reps. So is Ethan Burke coming off of the edge. So a good front seven. Secondary is replacing a lot with Jahdae Barron going off to the NFL. But two names that you got to know, Jalen Gilbo, who can play both in the nickel and on the outside. Phenomenal job last season fixing in as that star role. Maybe he is this version of Jahdae Barron who's got to play on the outside. And Malik Muhammad, last season was the number 2 cornerback. Had a couple of really ill-advised plays where he just let receivers burn him at the line of scrimmage. Has had a good camp. Don't think he will live up to the CB1 hype in the same way as Jahdae Barron, but still a very good corner that you can trust to be on the outside against most wide receivers, and Mookie Taft on the back end. But I say all that, and I'm just like, you know what? It doesn't matter because 16 is the storyline here. Like, I can talk all the positives about what goes on with Texas, how I think they're going to have one of the most elite defenses in college football, a top 5 rushing attack. None of it matters if 16 is not the guy, because we have pinned him up to be this quarterback and savior of Austin because of what his last name is. But I will say I do think he meets the goal. The big question I'm going to have this year is how quickly can we see the mental reps attached to the physical reps? Because if he only threw less than 96 pass attempts last season. For his entire career, he has less than, I think, 500 total plays under his belt. And that's 2 years in college. So there's a lot of growing. There's a lot of maturity to have to actually learn the ins and outs of the offense and be able to say, hey, what I've been doing in practice, I can translate onto the field. In the swamp, in the shoe, home against Texas A&M. How quickly do we see that mentality kind of take on over where the IQ is off the charts? He's making the right reads. He's understanding concepts. He's making sure that he's not putting the ball in harm's way. He's utilizing his athletic skill to be able to pick up yards on the ground. This could be a very deadly rushing team. This could be a very deadly passing team. The 3 elements that I think are going to decide Texas season this year is how well they can defend the run in the interior because of how much production they did lose. Can you trust a Travis Shaw? Can you trust a Brevard? Can you trust a Hero Canoe, a Justice Terry to be able to eliminate running backs quickly on the ground to set yourself up where you're forcing teams to live in third and passable? Number 2, is your offensive line going to give you protection for whoever is in your backfield, whether it be on a run play, whether it be on a counter play, whether it be on an option, whether it be on pass protection? Is your backfield going to have time to create the running lanes or the opportunities to gain positive yards? And then number 3, and probably the most important one, can you live up to the hype? Because if Texas this year has already been kind of crowned as the new top dog in the SEC, despite not winning the SEC last year. So what's the best course of action to guarantee that people aren't doubting you? Going out and proving it by total production, by margin of victory, by total yards, by outscoring opponents, by third down conversions, just dismantling teams, whether they're good or bad or however you feel about them, how this is going to truly be the identity of the roster. And I think Texas can do that. Maybe they're not going to be 10-2. Maybe they're not going to be 11-1, but I think if they're in the college football playoff, win or lose that first game in Columbus.
Yeah, their schedule sets up. There's a lot of fun stuff on this schedule, but it sets up to where there aren't too many traps. I think the biggest trap is probably in the swamp, But you know what you've got week 1 having to play, but then you get 3 nobodies, right? Sorry to the San Jose State, the UTEP, and the Sam Houston folks that may be tuned in. You get 3 nobodies before you have to go to the Swamp, and then you've got the Red River right after that. That back-to-back, I think, is tricky. But then outside of that, you get a little bit of a break. You get Kentucky, Mississippi State, Vandy before you have to go on the road and play in Athens. You get Arkansas the week before you play A&M, but that A&M game is at home. And so I think it sets up to be pretty manageable as an SEC schedule can be. That trip to Athens, if they were to lose a third time within, that'd be 13 months, to the Bulldogs, does that kind of turn into, this is my only question, we can move on to Ohio State. Does that kind of turn into like what Georgia had against Saban? Like where can Sark get over this one massive hump?
It will, but also, what does the rest of your schedule look like? Because if you beat Florida, you beat Texas A&M, you beat Ohio State, and you only lose to Georgia, well, you're still in Atlanta. You're still going for an opportunity to make the college football playoff and get that first round bye. And even if and now because of the new scheduling format, if you're 11-1 and let's say you lose on a game-winning field goal, at worst, you're going to be the 4 seed, so you're still going to get that first round bye. Like, yes, there is a reason to say you got to get past Georgia if you want to prove that you are right there alongside the Bulldogs and the Crimson Tide and all these other high-profile rosters that can handle business on the road. It matters, but it's no longer a death sentence. And ultimately, if you were to meet up in the playoffs, if you'd eliminate them, like Kirby won a national championship against Nick Saban. Like he still loses to Alabama in the regular season. But more people remember that win and that signature moment where for the first time in 40 years, Athens saw a national title come their way more than they remember, oh yeah, that 2020 loss where Stetson Bennett wasn't doing that good and it was a COVID season. Like that's the more important thing at that point.
Let's jump over to the Big Ten. We have a fun one today for Tom. Ohio State. We did Penn State last week, so if you missed that, go back and watch it. We'll link it at the end of the video. But Ohio State, still maybe the favorites in the Big Ten. Has that officially come out? Is Ohio State the favorite?
Well, according to the coaches poll, they're second. So how much of stock you put in that? I mean, a lot of sports books that you look at, it'll be Ohio State 1, Penn State 2, Oregon 3 to win the Big Ten championship game itself this year. And that's just depends on where you look. So I think Ohio State is getting plenty of love considering they won the national championship last year. Let's start at quarterback. It's not nearly the stability that Ohio State fans have enjoyed for many, many years now. Will Howard did an excellent job last year, but there is a legitimate battle happening in camp right now between Julian Sayin and Lincoln Kienholz. Kienholz has been pushing Sayin. Sayin has never truly been a starter in major college football, was recruited to Alabama, quickly transferred to Ohio State, sat last year behind Will Howard. Lincoln Kienholz, many people remember, played that bowl game a few years ago against Mizzou, and it was dreadful, but he was so green. So this is a very different situation. For me, looking across the board at Ohio State, Ryan Day brings stability, but you have big questions when it comes to your coordinator positions. Not that these are untalented coaches by any means, but you have Brian Hartline, arguably the greatest wide receiver coach in college football, moving to be the offensive coordinator now that Chip Kelly has gone back to the NFL. Defensively, Jim Knowles departs for Penn State. We talked about last week. Jim Knowles helps you win a national championship. You don't necessarily treat him all that well, apparently. And now you have Matt Patricia, formerly an NFL guy. So it kind of feels eerily similar to what Chip Kelly was. Come in, play a year, work a year, and then depart, something like that. So I'm curious to see where that goes for both those coordinator spots, because I think there's a lot of reason for optimism for Ohio State fans for them to potentially get back into the college football playoff and potentially win the Big Ten championship and credibly contend for the national championship. It begins with quarterback, as I just mentioned. Wide receiver, I'm expecting Jeremiah Smith to break every single season receiving record this upcoming year because Brian Hartline's the offensive coordinator. And it was a huge mistake they made against Michigan last year, deciding we're a run-first team and we're going to be a physical football team. No.
They still pass, though. That's the only thing.
They still pass, though, but I think they're going to lean more into that, and especially you don't have Judkins. You don't have Henderson at tailback. You have some young talent there, and you got to see how it develops, but C.J. Donaldson transferring in from West Virginia, Bo Jackson, Peoples, Sam Williams Dixon, excuse me. There's talent there. I just don't think it's going to be the same level of pop and explosion that you saw last year from Henderson and Judkins, because they gave you the explosive play. I think all the people, myself included, who questioned what Ohio State's offensive line talent was like last year need to shut up until they see something really glaring, because Ohio State showed that even if they're doing a quote unquote patchwork offensive line, when you pile up 5 stars and 4 stars and they eventually get on the field, they look like 5 stars and 4 stars. And Ohio State's returning a fair amount of guys from last year along that offensive line, and they just have talent, if not experience. They certainly have talent there along the offensive line. Defensively, this is going to be a little bit more of a question because you've sent a good amount of leadership off to the National Football League. I don't have to remind people how important Jack Sawyer was to this team last year. Bo Atkinson, the transfer from UNC, moving in as a defensive end. Kenyatta, Jackson, McDonald, Houston. Those are guys along the defensive line that are familiar to Ohio State fans. There should be good production there, but I think this is maybe going to be eerily similar to the way that Penn State's defensive depth kind of looks like going into 2025. Really good looking secondary for Ohio State, led by Caleb Downs, Jalen McClain, Igbinosun, Styles Jr. Like, there's a lot of guys here that are going to be able to contribute and have played with a lot of experience. You feel fantastic about the linebacker position with Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese. So I think there's going to be a lot of instances where it may not result in sacks and pressures, kind of like what I talked about last week with Penn State's defense and their pieces, but you're going to have a really nice secondary. And I think that's going to play into what they want to do this year. It just depends on what Matt Patricia ultimately does with this defense. How does it look with him going into this first season for him with a major college football team? Starting off against Texas, best of luck there. That is a really challenging game. At least you get it at home. Then it's Grambling and Ohio, basically 2 bye weeks. You're at Washington, at home against Minnesota, at Illinois. We were just talking about the top 15 in college football. People should not be looking past Illinois and Brett Bielema. Illinois showed to a reasonable extent that they could have been considered for that last spot in the college football playoff last year, I believe. You'll see Ohio State at Wisconsin. You'll see them host Penn State. That's going to be a challenging game. Jim Knowles coming back to Ohio State with something to prove. That's scary for Ohio State fans. You're at Purdue. You play against UCLA and Rutgers back-to-back games at home, and then you end the season against Michigan, who you've not beaten in a while, and that is always something that is polarizing for the fan base. So I think Ohio State is set up for success in 2025. Will they win the national championship again? I'm not entirely sure, and I do think there's going to be more pressure on whomever that quarterback is, whether it's Sand or Keinholz, to not necessarily be Superman, but you're going to have to do a little bit more, and that you're not going to have what you had from the running game last season. I love this receiving core, whether it's wide receiver or tight end, and how can you not? Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Brandon Inniss is your top 3 guys at receiver. Max Clare, I have been singing his praises for a while, the transfer tight end from Purdue. That Purdue offense was rough to watch, but as long as they put it into Claire's hands, good things happened on a regular basis. So for whomever that quarterback is, to have 4 very reliable receiving threats and time to throw the ball, that's going to be scary for other teams.
Their floor feels about like 9-3, and that would be a disappointment. A good place for fans to be in when your worst case scenario is probably still right on the edge of the playoff, if not in. I try not to think too much about like what the results of the first game will mean. As much hype as there is around a possible 1-2 matchup, I don't really think it matters.
It's not. It doesn't.
Whereas like you look at like the LSU Clemson game, and that one feels maybe more consequential for both teams that are probably going to be fighting to get in, although Clemson certainly an easier road. But you talk about the Penn State game, the Illinois game, Washington, and then Michigan being the big one. Can they get that monkey off their back? And I think we'll know so much more about Michigan at that point. We'll know so much more about Ohio State at that point. But that's still one of the top 3 games of the year to me, right? It's so hard to project what both teams will look like. We've been doing the countdown daily on the channel, and that Michigan one to me is still the one that sticks out as to what'll make or break their year. Certainly it didn't last year, but one that is the most intriguing to me on the schedule.
It's intriguing. And again, we've said it for a while on the show. What is Bryce Underwood in year one? Is he the starter super early? Is he looking like Cam Newton, like people think he's going to look like? That could completely change the complexion of that game. What are Michigan's fates this upcoming year? I think that's a huge storyline for college football. And I don't think they go exactly the way Underwood goes, but still, if they're in the running for the college football playoff, same with Ohio State, when you get to that game at the end of the year, that makes it even more compelling, regardless of what they're ranked. I really don't care at that point. But I think Ohio State is naturally getting some love because of the brand, because they just won the national championship. They returned some excellent pieces, but I do think those coordinator changes are going to be significant, and it's going to take them a minute to really understand who they are. And it's going to be mid-October, early November until they really grasp that. And Penn State is, outside of the Texas game, their biggest test at that point of the year when they really have an identity.
Tom, what do you think is more detrimental for Ohio State this year? They go 11-1, but the loss is to Michigan, or they go 10-2, and they beat Texas, they beat Michigan, they lose to Penn State, and then they drop a random game to say like Washington. Which would be more promising for the fan base that they could stomach?
I mean, as long as you beat Michigan and you're an Ohio State fan, you're going to rest easy. And I see there's a lot of Ohio State, Michigan comments here in the chat. So, I mean, as long as you get past Michigan, you're going to be fine. I'm really interested in what happens with this Texas game at the beginning of the season. This is the points you and TJ were just hitting, is like, hey, how much is this held against either team or propped up for the winner by the time we get to November? Is it just kind of like, hey, by the way, don't forget this game happened a million years ago, that sort of thing? I think it might go that way. I think if Ohio State were to beat Michigan, but for instance, lose to Penn State, the Washington loss, because I don't think people are expecting that, even though I know you and I think the world of Damon Williams, a quarterback for the Huskies, man, that is kind of an X factor there going on the road. And maybe that is a trap game, something like that. If you're able to beat Texas, you're off to a great start, regardless of who's at quarterback. The quarterback could have a horrible game, and as long as you get past that, you're like, woo, okay, we're going somewhere, but we're a little shaky here. Trap game potentially with Washington. I don't know, man. Like, I feel like a good season, a great season for this team is 10-2, and that's losing potentially to Penn State and Texas. I still expect them to beat Michigan this upcoming year, even though their recent track record has not been in that favor. But still, I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's reasonable to expect them to repeat. I think it's reasonable to expect them to get back to the playoff. And that's where a trap game against Washington, potential losses, 50-50 games, let's call them that, against Texas, Penn State, and Michigan. 4 games on your schedule. When you get into that territory with this 12-team playoff, you're making it easier for them to say, hey, we love the brand, but your record isn't reinforcing you getting into the playoff.
I mean, 9-3 last year kept Alabama out, and they had 2 terrible losses. That was a big deal. And I'll say this real fast. If Texas was to play this game against Ohio State in, say, week 6 in Columbus, I take Ohio State. I think it's the fact that it's week 1 and so many new pieces are being broken into.
Yeah. Let's roll to the wild card quickly. We're going to do some coach rankings, but not like you've ever seen them before. And so hopefully we have some fun with this. I've got 8 categories. We'll rapid fire them. You can give a quick thought. It's 12:59 now, so we'll be pretty quick here. I've got 8 categories. The rules are, Tom, you can only pick 6 SEC coaches, 1 Big 12 coach, and 1 ACC coach. So Tom, you can only pick SEC coaches. You get 1 from the other 2 conferences. Cole, you can only pick Big 10 coaches and 1 ACC, 1 Big 12. Again, there are 8 total. So if you do your first 6 from the Big 10, your last 2 have to be outside, or you can mix them in however. But
I like
this is going to be, this will either be great or a train wreck, but it's not about to go the way you're thinking. Tom, you can go first here. 1 SEC, Big 12 or ACC. You can also throw in as a wild card. 1 coach you'd like to grab a beer with.
Lane Kiffin.
Lane Kiffin could probably, and you can't repeat him, right? I'm sorry, Fred, say that. You can't use Lane again. But yeah, Lane would have been a good one for maybe any of these categories that we get to. Cole?
I really wanted to save him because he's a great Big 12 coach, but getting a beer and having fun and seeing the stories that Mike Gundy has underneath his belt, how the hell do you not pick that dude? Like, I'm going out to Stillwater. I'm going to Eskimo Joe's. I'm grabbing a nice cold one with the guy who is probably going to be looking for a new job after the season.
He may have some time. Cole, you can start this one. Who would you like, if you were in a fight, who would you like to fight with?
Oh my God, big man up on campus in Champaign, Illinois. Take off your shirt. Go to war, Brett Bielema. Absolutely taking the hog himself.
Tom?
And it has to be SEC, or it can be, what are the other options?
Big 12 or ACC. You get one from each of those.
Keys from Georgia Tech.
Brent Key.
Yeah. Thank you. Brett Key. I think he can handle himself. He seems like a tough SOB. I like him.
Tom, you can keep it. One coach you'd like to fight against. If you had to win a fight against a coach, who would it be?
Man, I can't beat anybody. If I had to take I don't know. If I had to take a spin with anybody, I think just as a Penn State fan, it'd be, oh man, that's tough. I was about to say Ryan Day, but I'm like, nah, I can't go Big Ten. Man. Is Kenny Dillingham short?
He's not tall.
Yeah, I feel like I could win that fight at least. I think he's shorter than I am. So I'm like, yeah, maybe that'll help me. I don't know.
Cole?
This is going to be so mean. It's so mean. But he's 70. Give me Kirk Ferentz. Put him in a helmet.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Don't let him go anywhere. Kirk, you ain't leaving my arm lock.
You're definitely
Fire
going
himself out within 5 minutes.
One coach, Cole, that you would just talk ball with for an hour.
I'm going to be honest with this one. Do I want to waste my ACC one here? Yeah, because if I don't, wait, Tom can't use ACC, so I can say this one. You know what? I'm going to go with the guy that I have a massive amount of respect for in his ideologies of building a quarterback. Give me Jed Fish out in Washington. I think that I'd have a lot of fun with him and what his overall mindset is on building a roster.
Tom?
You still have the easiest one on the board.
Easy, yeah, but like, who do I personally want? I think because he's built a national championship team, Kirby Smart.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, here's a good one. Lane would have been good for this one, but obviously he's off the board. This is similar, I guess, to grabbing a beer, but maybe a little less fun. You get dinner with somebody, but you're not allowed to talk any football with them. So, Tom, you're up.
I have access to the Big 12, correct?
Yes.
Deion Sanders.
Oh, I like that. All right.
Wait, who'd you pick for your head coach that you want to fight? That was Dillingham.
Dillingham, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're out.
I
can't go Big 12 again? Okay.
Yeah.
Dinner with.
Yeah, you have to be ACC. You've already done your 2 out of conference.
Has to be ACC.
Or SEC, sorry.
Oh, SEC, excuse me. God. This is rough. Give me Sark. He's had an interesting life.
I'll keep it short and to the point. I think Ryan Day. I just want to hear all of the death threats that he gets after a Michigan game. What's been the worst thing he's ever had to deal with? I think that'd be fun.
Cole, one coach you'd like to send your son to play for. The school is not attached, so it's not Ryan Day so that he can go to Ohio State, but just the coach.
Dan Lanning. I think that he builds players up the right way, and I think that he does a good job of making sure that you're mentally and physically prepared for the next stages of life, whether it be in the NFL or in just personal life.
Tom?
And I have to go SEC?
Yes.
Or you can go ACC.
No, he went Brent Key.
Never mind, you gotta go SEC.
Yeah, I went Brent Key. Oh man, it's really tough because there's not a
we've
not a lot of choir boys. Sam Pittman strikes me as like a principled human.
Tom, an SEC. Yeah, this is great. An SEC coach who would be the first of the remaining ones on your list to call if you needed them to post your bail.
Interesting.
I've got an idea for this. I want to see if you take it or not.
My knowledge of SEC coaches could be so much better. I'll say this, Billy Napier, because the University of Florida has a history of this. So they should be prepared with the appropriate legal team to call.
Yeah, so I had 2. I was going to say Kirby either because he's really familiar with it or Hugh Freeze because he could relate.
Oh, God, yeah.
Sorry. Cole, coach to call your bail.
I only have two more after this. This one and one more, right?
Yes, and you have not used ACC yet.
Yeah, screw it. Dabo, get me out of trouble. Go ahead and speak me down and talk about why Jesus loves me. Like, give me that, man.
Yeah.
I'll have a good heart-to-heart with you, Dabo.
Last one, Cole, you got to go Big Ten here. One coach just to go to a game with. A football game, yeah.
I'll tell you what. He is, in my opinion, still one of the best motivators in college football. Give me PJ Fleck. Row that boat. I don't care what game to go to. I would love to hang out with him.
You both have to wear a tie.
I'm fine with that. I'll dress up in
Lane would have been good for that one too. I feel like because of everything that encompasses college football, he would have been a fun person to party with. But Tom, your last pick, who would you go to a game with out of the SEC?
Brent Venables, arguably the best defensive mind in the game today, regardless of his position on a coaching staff. I think you could learn a thing or two.
All right, so some fun coach rankings. I have no idea how I come up with that, but we did, and we're 17 days away from football, so hopefully you enjoyed it. If you didn't, it's Mr. Cole Thompson on Twitter. All complaints
as always.
No handle is at Mr. Cole Thompson on Twitter.
Yeah. Boys, we have 2 weeks left, and then it will be game week. I can't wait. We're getting close. Thank you both for hanging out. Thank you to everybody who watched. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. We would appreciate you growing with us here on the Power 2 and College Football Addiction. And if you're watching on Twitter, we'd love to have you over on YouTube as well so we can see your comments. Good chats today. Appreciate Tice, Rocky Mountain Buckeye, Hunter, all those that commented. The voice of college football at Michigan, I saw that too. So thank you guys for hanging out. We will see you next Wednesday at noon. I'm counting down the days. See you soon.